Okay, today we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines and their slopes. Please make sure you take out a piece of loose leaf paper if you chose not to print out the notes. So if we look at two parallel lines, what can we say about their slopes? I'm going to cheat, and we're going to do this the easiest way possible. We're going to pick two nice coordinate points on the first line, and we're going to count boxes for the slope. Rise, up 2, over, run, 1, 2, 3. So the slope of that first line is 2/3. If I look at the lower line on that graph, again, if I pick out two nice coordinates on that line and I count boxes for the slope, the rise is 2 over the run, which is 3. So if I look at my slopes of these two lines, they are the same. Perpendicular lines will have what kind of slopes? Again, we're going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to pick two nice spots on this first line where the line hits a coordinate point, and I'm going to count boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. So down 4, so -4 over 1. If I look at the second line, again, and I pick two nice spots where the line hits a coordinate, it's up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I look at these two slopes, you'll notice that they are flipped upside down and one is negative. We call that the negative reciprocal. So if two lines are parallel, the slopes are the same. If two lines are perpendicular, the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, which means we're going to flip and negate the slope. So sometimes you might see two sets of points, and it will say, tell whether the points on the following sets of lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So if I look at line 1, I'm going to do my slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I have 4 minus 1 over -1 minus -3. If I do the math, on the top, 4 minus 1 is 3, and on the bottom, I like to do keep, change when I'm subtracting. So -1 plus 3, that gives me 2. So the slope of this top one is 3/2. Now if I look at the second one, the second set of points, again, I'm going to start by writing the slope formula. I'm going to plug in my numbers. Again, when I see subtraction, I do keep, change. And down here, I'm going to do keep, change. So -3 plus 6 is 3. 1 plus 1 is 2. So this slope here is also 3 over 2. Since the slopes are the same, I know that those two lines are parallel. If they were flipped and negated, they would be perpendicular. And if they were in any relation to each other, they would be neither. If I look at example number 2, again, it says tell whether the points on the following sets of lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So again, I'm going to start with my slope formula for the first set of points. I'm going to plug in the values. 2 minus -2, 1 minus -1. I like to keep, change when I'm subtracting, so that becomes 4 over 2, which reduces to 2, or 2 over 1. If I look at the second set of points, again, I'm going to start by writing down the formula. Every time you write it down, you have a better chance of memorizing it. -2 minus 1 more is -3, and then 4 minus -2, again, keep, change. That becomes 6. If I reduce this fraction here, it becomes -1 over 2. Now, if I compare these two slopes, they're flipped and one is negative, so that means that those two are perpendicular. If they were the same, they would be parallel, and if they had no relation, they would be neither. Again, we want to check and see if these points are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, so we need the two slopes. So we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We're going to do 5 minus 1 over 3 minus 1, 4 over 2, which is 2. I'm going to do it again for this set of points. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, 3 minus 0 over 5 minus 4. This becomes 3 over 1. Now if I compare this slope with this slope, they're not the same, so they're not parallel. They're not flipped and negated, so it's not perpendicular. So that means they're neither. Now, sometimes they will ask you about parallel and perpendicular slopes, and they'll give you equations of lines. The easiest way to do this is to look at the slopes of both lines. For number 4, if I look at the top, my slope is 2 because it's the number in front of the x. If I look at the bottom, this equation is not in standard form, so I'm going to move the x to the other side. I get 2y equals negative 4x plus 10. I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. I get y equals negative 2x plus 5. Now, if I compare my two slopes, this slope is negative 2. The other slope for the first equation up here is positive 2. So these are neither. They're not the same, so they're not parallel. They're not flipped and negated, so they're not perpendicular. So they are neither. If I look at number 5, if I look at my first slope, it's negative 1/2. The second equation I want to put in standard form, slope-intercept form. So I'm going to solve for y. Now if I look at my slope here, this slope is 2. This slope up here is negative 1/2. If I compare a 2 and a negative 1/2, those are flipped and negated, so these are perpendicular. Now, the last types of lines we have to discuss are our vertical lines and our horizontal lines. If I look at a vertical line here, the slope here is undefined. So any parallel line would be an equation whose slope is also undefined because parallel lines have the same slope. So if we go back to our vertical lines, this technically is the equation x equals 3. So any other line that I drew that had an x equals some number, so x equals negative 1, x equals negative 4, x equals 100, those are all going to be parallel. Any perpendicular line, so perpendicular means I want the total opposite. So it would be something that looks like this. And any horizontal line has a slope of 0. So an example of a perpendicular line would be y equals 1, y equals negative 1, y equals 50, y equals negative 32. Those would all be perpendicular. And the opposite for horizontal lines, if I look at this blue line, the slope there is technically 0. So the parallel line, any parallel line, would be an equation whose slope is also 0, which means if I want to be parallel, I would draw this line, I could draw this line, I could draw this line way down here. So those would all be y equals 4, or y equals 1, y equals negative 10. Any perpendicular, so again here perpendicular means we want the total opposite of the slope. So the total opposite of 0 would be undefined. So that would be something that looks like this. So that would have a slope of undefined or no slope. And any vertical line is x equals. So how about x equals negative 3, or x equals 10, or x equals negative 637. Those would all be perpendicular. Please write down any questions that you have and either email me or ask me next time you see me.